Good afternoon. My name is Tim Goddard. I'm Littleton's town moderator. I'm joined by our town administrator, Keith Bergman, and once again, we're here to give you a preview of the town meeting, which is on Monday, May the 4th this year. We're going to preview the articles on the special town meeting warrant and also on the annual town meeting warrant. So without further ado, let's get into some of the information regarding town meeting. You should have by now received in the mail your copy of the town meeting report. This is something that the town's done for, I think, 2 or 3 years now, and it really provides you with everything you'll need at town meeting in terms of the articles, the motions on the articles, recommendations that the various committees have made. Perhaps most importantly, it explains in plain English what each of the articles is about. It takes a little bit of the mystery and the confusion out of the town meeting process. Also, you'll find that the property tax bill impact of the financial articles and the Finance Committee's report on the budget and town finances. And as I mentioned, the town meeting begins at 7 p.m. Monday, May the 4th, in the K Gymnasium at the Littleton Middle School. The annual town meeting begins at 7 p.m. and then, as is our custom, we'll adjourn at 7:30 p.m. to take up the 8 articles that are on the special town meeting warrant. And once we've disposed with the special town meeting agenda, we join the annual town meeting in progress. We're usually right in the middle of the operating budget, and we kind of take things from that point. All right, I think, why don't we handle, Keith, why don't we handle the special town meeting because it's shorter. As I mentioned, that we won't get into that until 7:30 p.m. And if we can take a look at the articles that are on the warrant, most of them are kind of familiar or should be familiar to town meeting goers. Keith, anything you wanted to point out here? I know there are a couple of articles I think bear detailed explanation, but most of these are kind of the routine.
Yeah, these are some
variety.
of the routine articles, Tim, and welcome everyone back to the Tim and Keith show for another another edition. We enjoy this biennial, semi-annual opportunity, I should say, to brief folks on their town meeting. So we have a number of routine articles in the special town meeting warrant, which has to do with articles in the current fiscal year, which is FY 2015. We have some line item transfers where we're moving funds between line items without any impact on the tax bill or the tax rate. We're moving a total of $80,000 from one line to another. We are in Article 3 for the first time making a supplemental appropriation for snow and ice expenses. And it may be worth noting that the town has historically set aside in its spending plan a total of $650,000 to pay for snow and ice removal expenses. Of that, $200,000 would be in a current year's budget, and another $450,000 would be a reserve to be raised as a deficit in the subsequent year's budget. So in this case, we have $200,000 in the FY 2015 budget, fully expended, and sadly, $450,000 in next year's deficit reserve, also fully committed, so that we need to appropriate an additional $40,000 this year to pay for one of the heaviest snowfalls that we've had in recent memory. But there will be no impact on the tax rate as a result of that. It's coming from free cash, the undesignated fund balance. We're making some minor adjustments to a couple of other articles, a list of capital projects that were approved by last year's town meeting. We're just moving $6,000 worth of funds around from one building to another at the request of the Permanent Municipal Building Committee. And we're transferring a total of $160,000 in the current year Water Enterprise Fund budget out of a budgeted surplus line and into lines for expenses and for capital outlay. Article 6 was to have been a borrowing article submitted by the Board of Water Commissioners for improvements to the Cedar Hill water tank. The commissioners have withdrawn that article, so we will not be acting upon it. We will, however, be acting upon a proposal for supplemental roadway borrowing in Article 7 of the special town meeting. This would borrow yet another $1 million towards our roadway improvement plan. That plan was originally adopted in 2008. We've committed nearly $9 million in roadway improvements thus far. These are all done within the Prop 2.5 levy limit without any overrides or impact on the property tax bill. And the way we do that is by having money within the Prop 2.5 levy limit from the operating budget, some $600,000 annually that we appropriate each year, together with our so-called Chapter 90 roadway funds from the state, which for the coming year is going to be a little under $400,000. We received a higher amount this year because the state apportionment was larger. But we take those state funds together with the town operating budget funds, and we occasionally need to have borrowing authorization on top of it. We've, in the past, had $3.1 million in borrowing approved by town meeting, and we need another $1 million to continue with the project this year. And we're doing it this will be funding the next project, which is New Estate Road, which has an estimate of about $2.9 million. As you can see, we've completed a number of roads already: Goldsmith Street, Crane, Bruce, Whitcomb, Harvard, and Neshoba Road is currently under construction. And we have New Estate Road and Nagog Hill Road in the design phase. The New Estate Road will be the next to be constructed, and as I say, we've got an estimate of $2.9 million for that project. The last item that we have in the special town meeting is to add additional local appropriations into the Community Preservation Fund, the so-called blended Community Preservation Act. And as we've discussed at the last several town meetings, the Community Preservation Act was amended in 2012, and Littleton was the first town to adopt the so-called blended Community Preservation Act, which allows us to take our own municipal revenues and add them to the Community Preservation Fund in order to increase the base for state matching funds. In Littleton's case, that allows us in the current fiscal year to add an additional $454,000 into the CPA fund in order and get state matching funds. At our fall town meeting last November, we added $200,000, and we're proposing to add an additional amount of money this year. The Selectmen and Finance Committee and Community Preservation Committee have done a lot of work since last November, coming up with a joint financial policy document that ensures we're all on the same page about how the blended Community Preservation Act should work. And those three boards are committed to jointly developing a long-range financial plan for moving ahead. Now, what we're specifically proposing for the coming year, for our coming town meeting, would be to add municipal revenues in order to get additional state matching funds. This shows graphically what our 1% CPA property tax surcharges look like over time. We can add double that in our local revenues, from which we would get further additional state matching funds. As I mentioned last November, we added $200,000 to the CPA, to the blended CPA fund. Specifically, it was for recreation, active recreation. We're proposing to add money to the other three CPA purposes, the other three buckets, at this town meeting. Open space, $143,000 we're proposing to add. Housing, $46,000. Historic preservation, $65,000. That brings us up to our total of $454,000, which we're able to have as the basis for a state match. And if the state matching fund rate were again to be at the 31.5% that it was this year, that additional money would produce $143,000 in extra state matching funds. The jury's still out about what the rate is going to be, that the official number has been offered at 18%.
Right, I saw that.
It's a matter of debate in the legislature about whether it's going to be an additional amount or not. But we're hopeful that we'll be able to get some additional funds.
Certainly will be well positioned, no matter what the ratio is, to leverage those funds. Thank you, Keith. Those were the 8 articles that are on the special town meeting warrant. And again, that'll begin at 7:30 p.m. So we'll back up just a little bit to the annual town meeting warrant. Again, the annual town meeting will begin at 7 p.m. and we'll get as far as we can with the business of the annual town meeting. Then we'll adjourn to the special town meeting warrant, and when we're done with the special, we'll go back to the annual. That's the tradition here in Littleton. I know it's a little confusing to newcomers, but that's the way we do it. All right. I know that, Keith, the order of articles is something that's been discussed, and the Board of Selectmen has settled on a model with some urging from the Committee on Voter Participation. Maybe you could speak to the organization of the warrant in general before we get into the meat of it.
Sure. We're looking at that there are 3 categories of articles in the annual town meeting. First, the financial articles, then those requiring a supermajority vote, 2/3 come next, followed by all other articles, including the routine articles that we have. And even before that, something near and dear to the moderator's heart is the consent agenda articles, which is the for which we've identified those shown here. Hopefully routine articles, which if there's no debate or discussion about them, that the moderator would entertain a motion to approve.
Right. We first started this practice, I think, in 2007. It's been very successful so far. As Keith mentioned, we try to bundle the articles that experience has taught us that are non-controversial, routine authorizations or reauthorizations of various items. And we do vote, take one vote and vote unanimously on the grouping of the articles. But you know, and I try to emphasize this each year, no one should be cowed into voting for articles that they have questions on or legitimately want to debate. If anyone has a question or wants to debate anything that's in the consent agenda, all they need to do is raise their hand and let me know at the appropriate time, and that article will come out of the consent agenda and will be debated in the normal course of things. So no one need feel that it has to be done this way. It's proved to be a bit of a time saver and gives us more time, I think, to deal with the articles that people deem to be more important or deserving of more discussion. But again, we'll go with the consent agenda practice this year. And I note there are 10 articles of the 22 are on the consent agenda. So if we can vote those 10 as a bundle, we'll have 12 articles remaining to be considered on the rest of the agenda.
Great. And then next we have the list of financial articles, including those not on the consent agenda. The operating budget, the enterprise fund budgets, capital items, the community preservation budget, those are all annual operating budgets that and capital budgets we bring forward each year. We'll also have articles to fund collective bargaining agreements that are reached by Monday night, amendments to the personnel bylaw, and then an article to rescind some $9 million in unused borrowing authority. But the main event, and basically the reason why we have an annual town meeting is to adopt an annual budget. And so this year, as with many prior years, all the time that I've been here, we're happy that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and the School Committee are in complete agreement about how the budget should be brought forward to town meeting. So we're looking at total increase in the operating budget of 2.1%. Municipal departments up by 3.2, the school appropriation 3.2, school reserve spending is up slightly. Technical school assessments are down. Other charges, including the amount we spend on roadways, are up by 5%. Employee retirement and benefits are up by almost 7%. And debt service is declining this year by 10%. So in the aggregate, it's a 2.1% increase. There's no override of Proposition 2.5 that's being proposed this year. There's no debt exclusions. There's no capital exclusions that are proposed in the budget.
Right, and to me, it is noteworthy, Keith, that the boards are in agreement year after year on the budget, and that's not the case in all communities. So I think it really speaks to the level of commitment and cooperation between the boards, and I know you and your staff, work quite diligently with the boards, and it might get a little boring at town meeting, but boring is okay if everyone is on the same page as far as the budget goes, as far as I'm concerned.
Dare I say, boring is our business. So, and I hate to say that, and I'm sure there'll be recriminations at home for having said it, but it's we strive, we work all budget season long to reach an agreement on how the spending plan should be achieved, and we're happy that we've been able to do that again this year. So just to quickly run through some of the capital items, the other major expenditures that we're doing are for, in some cases, routine, in other cases, extraordinary capital projects for the various town departments, vehicles and maintenance for police department and fire. This year, the fire department is proposing for $550,000 a replacement vehicle, which would be a combination rescue pumper. We've got highway department equipment repairs and equipment replacements. A number of capital items for the schools as well. Under facilities and infrastructure, we're again bringing forward recommendations from the facility needs assessment study that was done a couple of years ago. This year we've got $427,000 worth of building improvements. That's great when we can be proactively spending the funds that are needed to make sure that our facilities are kept in good shape. We also have funds for another $100,000 is being sought for the master plan update to bring the total to $213,000 so that project can get started. Just a little more detail on the facility needs assessment. We're looking at funds for the high school, for police headquarters, the Russell Street School, a number of school paving projects, and for town offices and library. And for the master plan update, as I mentioned, we've appropriated $113,000 to date. We're looking for another $100,000. Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board are launching the project together with a master plan update steering committee that will be developing a proposed scope of services from which we can procure a consultant to complete an update to the master plan, which was last updated in 2002. So we're looking forward to getting that project off the ground. Another of the routine articles that we're doing is the community preservation budget that we are devoting the minimum 10% required for open space, historic, and housing. and we'll be using additional funds from the undesignated reserve. There are just 2 new projects that are being proposed, that we're paying for debt service on a number of projects that have already been authorized. In addition to that, there's $800,000 for a new project the Historical Society is proposing for the Houghton Memorial Building, and the Littleton Housing Authority has $18,000 that it is looking to use for its Pine Tree Park facility. At the end of the day, or at the end of the fiscal year, that we will have fund balances in the Community Preservation Act fund, including, by the way, those amounts that we saw are being deposited in the special town meeting. But the ending balances in the CPA categories would have $170,000 in open space, $73,000 for historic, $122,000 for housing, $200,000 for recreation, and $61,000 undesignated. So we'll have, we're hoping to build up a reserve for CPA funds so that when there is a big project that comes along, major piece of open space that needs to be purchased, some big project that the whole town wants to get behind, that we'll have the money set aside to do that.
Very good.
Another area that we'll be concentrating on this year, that we are currently in negotiation with all 4 of our municipal unions, for those that we reach agreement with by the time we convene town meeting, we'll be bringing the matter of funding of those contracts forward. So the motions that we'll be handing out in the update as folks enter the room on Monday night for town meeting will include a motion to appropriate funds needed to implement contracts that we reach with any of our, whether we reach with the fire, police, or dispatch, or highway. So the ones that are negotiated and ready to go by Monday night, we'll fund those contracts in Article 9. The other thing that we're doing is in the Article 10, the very next article, we're amending the personnel bylaw to do a couple of things. First, 3 years ago, we implemented a major change to our personnel policies when we eliminated, we got rid of unlimited sick leave, and the benefit became limited. And that there's some fine-tuning of that document that we worked out with the affected town employees. We're going to bring some of those language changes to town meeting. We're also looking to update our maternity, paternity, workers' comp language. And in addition, we're looking to implement a 2% salary schedule adjustment for non-union employees. We haven't adjusted the salary schedule in 3 years. It was FY 2013 was the last time we updated the schedule. We're about to enter FY 2016, and the 2% salary schedule adjustment doesn't let the cat out of the bag to say that one union that we have reached agreement with as of our taping right now is at a 2% number. So we're looking to be able to bring 2% across the board to town meeting for funding. So that plus funding the raises for non-union folks will be in Article 10.
Very good. And Articles 11 through 15 are part of the consent agenda, which we will have voted previously, and when we get to this point in the warrant. So the next article will be a zoning amendment, which is Article 17. Keith?
Yes, at the request of the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board is bringing forward a proposed zoning amendment that essentially amends our zoning bylaw to conform with a recent court ruling which governs how non-conforming structures are to be treated. And Town Council had drafted the language which essentially says that a special permit that authorizes the extension of a non-conforming structure, which currently is reviewed under the not more detrimental to the neighborhood standard, that special permit cannot be used to authorize a brand new non-conformity. In essence, it means that in order to have a new nonconformity, you need to get a variance, which is from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Our existing zoning bylaw doesn't quite say it that way. The court decision that was handed down by the Mass Appeals Court says it a very specific way, so we're amending our bylaw to conform with that decision. In addition, the amendment in Article 17 proposes to provide a 2-year grace period for non-conforming uses to be reactivated. Arguably, under the current language, which says that a non-conforming use ceases to exist as soon as you stop using it, the more standard approach is to allow for a 2-year grace period, and that typically allows you to deal with such things as if you've got a piece of property that is owned by someone and then it's part of their estate that they leave to others. If there was a non-conforming use in that property that everyone's in agreement should be allowed to continue, well, then the 2-year grace period would make sure that the right to use it for that purpose could be preserved.
Continued. And just to note that that's a zoning bylaw amendment which requires a 2/3 vote of a town meeting, as opposed to a general town bylaw requires a majority vote.
So the next item that we have, and we're getting towards the end now, Article 18 proposes to adopt the so-called Stretch Energy Code. That is a requirement for certification under the Green Communities Act, which is a state program, which if Littleton became certified as a green community, we would receive $140,000 in state funds for energy improvements and be eligible for competitive grants. The Stretch Energy Code is an amendment to the base code, and I think an important point to be mentioned is that back in 2008, when the Green Communities Act was first passed by the legislature, the stretch code was a stretch from what the base code is. And in fact, the base code is now caught up with the so-called stretch code. And the standards for energy efficiency that are now in the base building code are very, very close to what the standards are in the so-called stretch code. So a number of communities that have adopted the Community Preservation Act thus far have adopted the Stretch Energy Code as well, that there are 5 criteria necessary for a community to qualify as a green community and be eligible for the grants. 4 of those do not require votes of town meeting. The 5th one, the adoption of the Stretch Code, does. The first 2 criteria that we have as of right citing for certain energy facilities, and that we've adopted an expediting permitting process in our zoning, we've already done. That our existing zoning bylaw already meets those 2 standards, so there's no further action that's required. The 3rd criterion is for the town to create an energy reduction plan, which would reduce energy use in municipal facilities by 20% over a 5-year period. We're in the process of doing that now. We received a grant from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council to have their energy division work with the town, our sustainability committee, the electric department, and other town departments to develop an energy reduction plan for the town. And so we're looking forward to proceeding with that. And also that it would be necessary to adopt a policy of purchasing the most fuel-efficient vehicles where those are available. That there are some that are categorically excluded, such as public safety or certain public works vehicles, but for administrative purposes, if there's a vehicle you can have that would, for energy efficiency's sake, you'd have that requirement. Lots of our surrounding communities have adopted the stretch code already. I happen to see Carlisle here,
That's
Mr.
right.
Moderator.
Since 2011, Carlisle's been a green community, and one of the advantages that Keith pointed out is that the grant funding that the state makes available to the green communities directly helps you implement your energy reduction plan. So it's a real win-win kind of situation once you qualify as a green community. So this obviously would be an important step, and as Keith pointed out, the only town meeting action that's necessary is the adoption of the stretch code, and that's on the warrant.
And there are 147 municipalities, including Tim's job in Carlisle, that have already adopted the Stretch Energy Code, and most of our neighbors, the vast majority of our neighboring communities, have already adopted the code as well. So we're hopeful of adoption of the code and achieving green community status, and to be able to qualify for all of the funding that Tim and Carlisle already qualify for.
That's right. Which brings us, surprisingly enough, Article 19 will be the final article to be considered.
And this is for adoption of the so-called Complete Streets program. It requires a town meeting vote to accept a state statute by which the Commonwealth established a competitive funding program for communities that are certified as having adopted complete streets policies. Now, Littleton is already a leader in this area, and back in December of 2013, the Selectmen and the Planning Board adopted a complete streets policy, which Smart Growth America rated as #1 of its kind in the nation just a few months later. However, that was in February of 2014 we got that recognition. 2 months later, there was a state law passed which created a funding program that's administered by Mass DOT, but it does require local adoption by town meeting of that program. And we're anxious to be able to compete for the funds. We'd like to have them available to help us build sidewalks and bike paths and other pedestrian-friendly amenities so that streets are used for more than just vehicles. So we're hopeful to get town meeting support for this. And that is our annual town meeting in a nutshell, Tim.
Very good. Thank you, as always, Keith. Once again, the town meeting begins at 7 p.m. on Monday, May the 4th, in the K Gymnasium at the Littleton Middle School. We hope this program has been informative. Again, please remember to bring the town meeting report that Keith's holding up that you should have received in the mail. There are some copies available if for some reason you lost it or didn't get it. And I know it's posted in its entirety on the website in addition to other information that the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen have made available. With that, I guess we'll see you at town meeting on Monday, May the 4th. Thank you.
Thanks very much.